Excellent. It is noon. Um, I think we should just go ahead and get started, if that's okay. Um, and people can log on as they join us.
Did you want me to share my screen?
Yeah. Can you share your screen? Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Sorry, I should have
No problem, no
communicated
problem.
a little more thoroughly. All right. And we're live on Facebook, right?
It is
There
starting
we
up
go.
now.
Sounds great.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Welcome, Matt. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm Andrea Wandersee. I'm the Executive Director of NEDA, and we are proud members of the Central New York Cash Coalition, and this is our Money Talks series. Matt is with Visions Federal Credit Union, and he'll be here today talking about how we pay down debt.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. As she mentioned, I'm Matt Kisloski. I'm the Financial Wellness Manager at Visions Federal Credit Union. So we do a lot of financial education pieces. Today we're going to be talking about paying down debt. And Andrea, I didn't know if you want to talk a little bit about the Cash Coalition.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much. The Central New York Cash Coalition is a group of organizations who come together to help lower and mid-income families create assets, savings, and hope. We have a number of programs that help promote financial stability and asset building opportunities for individuals and families here in Onondaga County, including our Vita Tax program and our Money Talk series.
Awesome. And so when we're talking about paying down debt, we really want to start at a really solid position with a solid base and foundation. And really, most things in personal finance and in financial wellness journey really does start with budgeting. And I always say when you're looking at your financial situation, as if you're building a house, budgeting truly is that foundation. That's what you can really build off of. And paying down debt is a really big piece of that. So when we're looking at budgeting, I always say budgeting gets kind of a bad rap. Budgeting is at its core truly income minus expenses, and then you have something to make your decisions off of, and that bottom line, that balance is what really helps us pay down that debt. So as we get started with budgeting, we really want to review our income and expenses, making sure that our expenses don't exceed our income. That's kind of where we get to debt in the first place, so then we can pay that down. And goal setting is also huge, particularly in paying down debt, because when we look at debt, it really is not uncommon to have debt in multiple places. And that's a big thing that sometimes makes it a bit overwhelming to really tackle. And that's where setting goals is kind of step one. It's a really great place to start, because we want to know what we want to pay down, what's going to be the most impactful to pay down first, and then how do we get to that point of actually making the payments, and sometimes making those extra payments that really help it out a lot. And at the end of the day, it's preparing to make those changes, because if we're not prepared to maybe change spending habits, saving habits, payment habits, paying down the debt is going to be more of a daunting task. If we're prepared to make changes, we're prepared to optimize what we're doing with our money, that's going to help us a lot when we're looking at reaching those goals. So when we're looking at paying down debt, we kind of want to really pay attention to what saving can really do. Because paying down debt is great, that's one thing, but we don't want that to take the complete front seat where every single thing that we're doing is going towards debt, and then now we don't have a cushion for, let's say, an emergency fund. One of the, I really appreciate when people get into the full pay down debt mode, but if they're putting every extra cent they have towards that debt, and let's say flat tire, a window in your house or apartment breaks, something like that, and you don't have an emergency fund, that can get you into that situation where back in debt, and there's another form of debt. So We also want to prioritize that saving for emergency, because life happens. It's always going to happen. And we really want to keep that top of mind, because if you plan ahead and you hit a road bump, it's a whole lot easier to smoothly roll over that road bump, as opposed to something that comes completely out of left field that we're unprepared for. So as difficult as it is to put aside money for something that might not ever happen, it can save lives down the road. So pretty simple chart as far as what can saving truly do. $1 a week, $52. My budget here, but if I were to put that away and make $1,000 over the span of the year, again, probably not going to break a budget, but I know that there's a whole lot of things that I would rather do with $1,000, like if I had that. And paying down debt is a big piece of that, because if we're looking at, just the financial stress related to it, credit score implications, just your ability to save in general, ability to set yourself up for the future, paying down that debt is a big weight off your shoulders. So if we're able to plan for that, that's really, really helpful. So when we're looking at debt repayment, it is really important to plan it out. So the planning starts with creating that budget, planning out what your day-to-day spending, week-to-week spending looks like. How much money do you need to truly live the life that you are living, that you want to live? That's a really great piece to have in front of you. Setting up a savings plan is really important, as we mentioned. Rolling over those roadblocks, planning ahead for things that might not happen, but if they do, it's nice to have that cushion. But now it's planning around your debt, and that's a really, really important piece as well. So taking inventories of debts. So really mapping out, and sometimes it's painful to put all the debts that you owe right down in one spot. But when we're looking at creating that repayment plan, that's the best thing to do. We really want everything in front of us so we can make the most informed decisions, the most impactful decisions when we're looking at those payment plans. And that's create that plan of attack, because all debts aren't equal, right? So we have different total amounts that we owe. There are probably different interest rates. There are other sense of urgencies, times if it's utility related. Are we at risk of having those utilities shut off if we're not paying back those debts? And then we also want to look at what accounts are in good standing. And the big piece of that is we want to keep those in good standing, because if we're tackling the ones that aren't in good standing first, we don't want that list to keep getting bigger and bigger. So we really want to look at everything that we have in one sheet and prioritize it out. And that's where understanding what types of payments are being made, how much is being made, what we just need to keep in good standing by keeping that payment history going is really important. But we also can take the snowball effect. So look at those smaller debts that we owe, get those paid off off of our plate, and really move on to the bigger debts and bigger debts and bigger debts. And as we're looking at this works for my budget, this payment plan, as those smaller debts fall off of our plate, we pay them off. We can take those payments that we were making on the smaller debts, and if it works in our budget, we can transfer those into some of those bigger debts and make those principal payments, which are really what are paying down those debts. So one of the big things that myself and my team sees a lot is credit cards. That's one of the most popular forms of debts because they have such high interest rates. And credit cards are something that's really, really important to understand the power of the principal only payment. So when we're looking at paying more than the minimum, because the interest rates are so high, if somebody maxes out their credit card, they might be making the minimum payment month after month after month, and that's reporting to their credit bureau. They're making their payments on time. This is looking great. But then they look at their balance and it's not actually going down. That's because we find people spinning their wheels and they're saying, I'm making the payments on time. I'm not sure what's happening here. Well, the interest is so high that by making that minimum payment, sometimes you're only paying the interest, and the principal, how much you actually owe, doesn't go down. So really figuring out the best plan of attack for making sure that principal does go down is really important. So keeping those minimum payments on maybe an auto payment is a really good way to go. But we want to work a way into our budget where we can make those extra principal only payments, so we're actually chipping away at the true debt. So when we're looking at debt repayment, we truly want to have it in front of us of what we really owe, what debts are out there, and then create that plan of attack of how can I really make this either go down, or how can I get some of these smaller debts off of my plate. So again, it's really setting up that strategy that's going to work best for your budget, and that's what people like myself, my team, the FECs in Syracuse, the financial empowerment centers, are really great resources for. Come down, meet with a counselor, and really devise that plan with somebody who does it day in and day out. That's our jobs, is to optimize people's budget, help them get out of debt. So take advantage of the resources that are there. That's a really, really important thing to keep in mind, because the resources are out there. So as we look further into debt repayment, we want to look at other situations that might be going on. So if there are delinquent accounts, those will take priority, which means that maybe they're at risk of going into collections. So let's say it's hypothetically a car payment that's been delinquent. If it goes into collections, you're now at risk of them coming in and taking your car. And then that can snowball into other unfortunate events. So if I don't have my car, I maybe can't get to work. If I can't get to work, I maybe can't get paid. If I can't get paid, I'm not going to be able to pay the rest of my bills. So that's where that priority and that planning really takes that front seat of what do we need to plan for right away. And then collections.
Matt?
Yes.
Can I interject? One of the things we were talking about earlier today is if you are behind in your utility bills and you're looking for a new apartment, it's difficult to rent a new apartment if you owe utility bills. And so that often becomes a top priority to pay down that debt if you need to move.
Absolutely. And that's where that prioritizing really does come into play, because one of the things to keep in mind here as you're going through this is stay up to date on your credit report, your credit standing, anything like that, because I don't think that we give enough attention to or acknowledge how much credit does impact our day-to-day lives. If you're going for utilities, even a cell phone plan, your credit's going to be checked. It's really just showing that you have that payment history, that responsible credit history. And that's a great point to bring up about utilities. If you're looking to move and you have an account with them, they're going to be looking to see, do they owe money on this account? So before you move over, you're going to want to get that taken care of. So that would definitely take that priority. And then we have a collections accounts, and it's just really important to understand the difference between delinquent and collection. So delinquent is with missed payments, so you're able to catch up on those before it goes into collections, which is really important to keep in mind. And then collections account, those are ones where you want to reach out to them and try to make a plan to get that paid up, or just to get them off of your case essentially, and figuring out that payment plan that's going to benefit you, to make sure everything is where it needs to be. And that brings us to a lot of, I'm just going to skip this really quick, about communication and how important this truly is. So when we are facing those financial hardships or collections, delinquencies, it does really help to contact the creditors that you do owe money to, and take a lot of notes, understand who you spoke to, what your agreement ended up being. If you can get things in writing, it's really, really important. And as we're looking at paying down debt and trying to set up a situation where we can get on more of a payment plan if there are collections involved or delinquencies, remaining calm and pleasant on the phone really does go a long way. As much as it shouldn't come into factor, people are often more willing to work with you, work something out if you are remaining calm. You're not yelling, cussing, being difficult with them on the phone. We really, and from a different perspective, I can speak to what I've seen in the past working at different institutions. I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of times they would so much rather have some sort of payment plan in place than having somebody throw you the keys to a truck that you're not going to make payments on anymore. They don't necessarily want your truck. They want to get paid. So when it comes to collections, it really is important that if you see it heading that path, if you can get ahead of it and reach out and say, I'm having some financial hardships, get on a payment plan earlier, they're going to be more willing to work with you in that. So if you do see it going down that road, see what you can do as far as that communication goes, because communication really can be a helpful piece when we're looking at debt repayment or getting out of those different account situations. And overall, when we're looking at paying down our debts, it really comes into play as far as rebuilding that credit and what that can do. And it can open up new doors. So if we do the snowball approach, where we're looking at some of the smaller debts, getting those off of our plate, rolling those into the bigger debts, that will allow you to get some of those off the credit reports or bring it back up into good standing. And that's going to allow maybe for a debt consolidation loan or something that's going to benefit you. So when we're looking at that, we really want to keep in mind what's going to be the best system for me. Am I going to have to reestablish my credit or my ability to, because not all debt is bad. There's good debt, there's bad debt. So am I hindering my ability to take on good debt by not getting these other debts repaid? So when we're looking at debt repayment, we want to take into account budgeting. We want to take into account savings and savings for the future, priorities and goals. So set up what exactly is there. What's our plan of attack? Is a snowball situation best for you? Or is it going to be keep up with those minimum payments, and in your budget, you can work out extra payments here and there? There's going to be a lot of different systems, but take advantage of the resources that are available to you, because that's really, really important. And keep that open line of communication. Because as we're going through debt repayment plans, communication is really big, whether it's with a financial counselor, with your financial institution, with your creditors. It's not always fun to have those conversations, but they really can benefit you a lot in the long run. We would so much rather have you come meet with a financial counselor and get on a good path than having somebody suffer in silence. That's not what we want to see. And ultimately, what we want is to get everybody where they want to be and living a life that they want to live. And as debt repayment keeps rolling and going, it makes it a lot easier. And just like paying those debts off little by little, those small ones out first and focus on the big ones, your financial situation can snowball for the positive too. So if it starts smaller, get some paid off, then you're able to save more as they're getting paid off, or you're able to make bigger payments as smaller ones get paid off, and your financial situation just gets more and more positive. And that's really the path that we want to take there. I'd love to take any questions that anybody has. I'm sure, there might be some. You can always reach out to myself, or as I said, head into an FEC and get those questions answered.
Does anyone have any questions? I know for me, when I was trying to pay down a lot of debt and I had a lot of accounts open, it was really helpful to have that list. And really the decision was like, do you pay off the smallest one first or the one with the highest interest rate? Like, those decisions are tough to make. But I think one of the hardest things was trying to save at the same time you're trying to pay down debt. And without that safety savings account, it's really hard to stay out of debt. I feel. It's been my experience. But for me, I really liked tracking my progress. So I'd look at it every month and see how much I'd paid down over time. I found that really motivating. Personally, I like spreadsheets. Not everybody does. But I think keeping track and seeing my progress was a really important motivator.
Definitely. And I think, just like I say with budgeting, just like I say with anything else, it's really a matter of the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it, the better you get at it. And to your point, Andrew, I think those decision making moments are really big, and it starts with the spreadsheet and that budget. What are you able to make as far as payments go? And then when you build out that sheet, or just kind of that list, what's the total amount that you owe? What's the interest rate? And really prioritize from there. Maybe you flip flop. Maybe you get rid of the smallest one first, and then you focus on one with the highest interest rate. And you can, to your point, go to month by month and see the progress, and see, maybe I should focus on a different one, get another one completely off my plate before I jump back into the one with the most interest rate. So when you're paying down those debts, it really is going to be what's working for you. What are you able to do in your budget? How are you able to handle the different debts that you have going on? So sometimes it is easier to just wipe the ones that you can, so you have less amount of debt accounts that you have to worry about. Sometimes it's, I just want to focus on the interest rates. So it's really going to be up to you, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it, the better you'll get at doing it. And you're going to see the efficiency really roll forward as far as that goes.
Mhm. I think another really important thing is communicating with the people who are like in your life the most, right? And if you have that group of friends that you go out for lunch or dinner, to be able to say to them, listen, guys, I'm trying to pay down my debt. Can we go to the more affordable option, or can we get bag lunches and meet at the park, or, and finding a way to do that that feels good. But also, like, you can kind of make it fun. Some of those things, not everything, obviously, but for some of those, wants versus needs things, just trying to reframe your life a little bit. But I think, going out to eat is one area that gets really expensive. And, putting that on a credit card, or just doing it and not spending down your credit card, can be a real problem.
Definitely.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions?
Do you recommend consolidating?
It really depends on how comfortable you are with what's going on. Consolidation, it's good to look at the options that are out there, because there are a lot of times when, particularly again with credit cards, where you can lump them all into one payment that has a lower interest rate. And so now, not only are you paying a lower interest rate, you are only having to deal with one payment instead of 4, 5, 6 different payments that might be falling on different dates. So for convenience sake, it is nice, and a lot of times it can save you on that interest rate. But again, that's not something that's for everyone. And then, we also want to take your credit score into account as far as that goes too, because sometimes if there is a lot of outstanding debt and different things there might be qualifying issues. But it's definitely good to do your research. And if you find yourself with a lot of different payments, it is sometimes nice to get them all into one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the most important thing for me when I tried to do that was, if I consolidated everything, and I'm not closing the other accounts, to not then use those other accounts, especially for an unexpected medical bill or vet bill or car repair. It's, oh, well, I just consolidated all this stuff and now my brakes went, and then using that other credit card. And that's again where that savings account, I remember when my financial planner was like, oh, you need a savings account. I'm like, I've got all this debt. How do I do them both? And I think that's really, and building it up over time. But I think consolidation's great if you're not then using the previous accounts.
Definitely.
Other questions? All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. Visions Credit Union is definitely a resource for people to go and sit down and talk with someone about their money. You can also go to the Syracuse Financial Empowerment Centers for free one-on-one counseling. We've got the information up here. You can visit the www.syracusefec.org for more information. Next week, we've moved to weekly Money Talks Wednesdays, and shortly we'll have a schedule for the whole fall. But next week we are going to be focusing on paying for college. So we'll have more details in Nita's weekly e-blast, and look forward to seeing everyone next week. Matt, thank you so much. And I know you'll be back on kind of a monthly basis, so we sure appreciate all of
Absolutely.
your
Thank you for having me.
support. Yeah, great to have you. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.